Are you feeling anxious and nervous before your matches that you find it difficult to sleep at night? Or even worse, you can't stop thinking about what you are going to do during the game, and you start to create unrealistic scenarios of yourself, which then causes you to overthink and underperform once game day arrives. Well, you are not alone. Many athletes from low to professional levels struggle with the same thing. Those athletes cannot manage their emotions once game day arrives. But you can overcome these mental blocks doing only one thing: mental preparation. If you don't know me, my name is Gabriel Diana. I'm a mental performance coach working with elite athletes. I'm also the founder of the Athlete Mentality Academy, an online platform that has over 1,000 athletes working on their mental game. I'm also the author of The Daily Athlete, a book that reviews the mindset of high-level athletes. In this video, I want to review to you the strategies that create the confidence and the composure of elite athletes like Cristiano Ronaldo, LeBron James, and many other athletes. And also the techniques used by athletes like you to achieve their full potential, whether they are academy, amateur, semi-professional, or professional players. I will show the strategies and techniques to achieve your highest potential in this video. So stick with me until the end and you understand exactly why talented athletes create mental blocks even though they work really hard and ends up not being able to use their highest potential when it matters most. So let's get into it. Why talented athletes develop mental blocks and what you can do about that. So the first topic that creates a lot of mental blocks, and this is something that I have seen with a lot of athletes working them one-on-one, is the frustrations and expectations. So imagine that you are an athlete who performs extremely well in trainings. You have a lot of skills. You can see that you're working as hard or most of the times harder than your teammates. In trainings, you are able to perform better than most of them, but when game time arrives, you don't show up, you underperform, you're outworking everybody, but when it matters most, you are underperforming most of them. You are playing average, you are not getting any attention, you are not meeting the expectations that you had for yourself. So that happens because you have a lot of expectations. You see that you really have the potential. And then when you are trying to perform, when you're performing in an important competition, you perform like this. So this gap is your frustration. And what happens to most athletes when they have this gap is they create higher expectations. So I wasn't able to perform before, so in the next game I really have to prove, I have to show how good I am, show my coach, show my teammates, I have to make it count. And these expectations, this pressure to perform, to prove, to achieve more all the time will put more pressure on you. And the more pressure that you have on yourself, the lowest your performance. Because if you think about it, most athletes, and probably you are included in this group, most athletes perform their best when they're free, when they're focused on the game, when they don't have anything to prove, they're just having that freedom. Think about how you feel when you're playing with your friends, or how you used to play when you were younger. That freedom, that enjoyment that you had back at that time was a key reason for you to perform your best. So you don't have to put more pressure. You have to learn how to deal with the expectations. And this is a major mental skill. Think about the best performers in the world. Think about Cristiano Ronaldo, think about Lamine Yamal, for example. He's a very young athlete, there are a lot of expectations on him, has a lot of potential, and he is able to use that potential. The reason for that is because he has those mental skills. And he has said before that he was working with a psychologist before to make sure that he was able to adapt to the pressure and expectations of being a professional player. So this is a major mental skill that if you really want to cope with the expectations and get back that freedom, that enjoyment, you need this. This is the skill that you need to have that freedom back. Number 2, and we're gonna discuss how you can develop those mental skills throughout this video. Firstly, I want to dive into the 3 main reasons that creates mental blocks. And this comes from my experience working with athletes that were younger and when transitioning to the first team, to athletes that were in the first team, big teams around the world, and weren't able to perform as much, to athletes that are trying to get their professional contracts, to athletes that are able to perform in their clubs but not as well in their national teams. So all of this comes from a lot of athletes that I spoke to in the past, and my experience understanding what were the obstacles that those athletes were facing. So number 2 is Fear is their motivation. So a lot of athletes rely on fear to keep working hard. And this is a problem because when you think about that, you are trying to prove yourself all the time. You are focused on proving yourself, and all you think about is, I have to show, I cannot fail, I have to prove, I have to show to my parents that I'm good enough, I have to prove to my coach that I'm better than this, I have to show my teammates that I deserve playing time. They create all of this fear of failure, this fear of mistakes, and yes, it motivates them. They're able to work really early and put in the extra work, they're able to go to the gym, they're able to do a lot of stuff. But this motivation makes them to feel too tense when they're playing. Because, of course, all the time that you're training, you are improving your skills, but at the same time, you're also teaching your brain that situation is dangerous. We don't want to fail. We want to prove them wrong. We want to show they were good enough. We cannot make mistakes. We have to outperform. You are teaching your brain all the time those things. And when you get to that situation, you are reinforcing all the time that it is a situation that you cannot fail, that you have to prove, that is essentially a threat to your career. You feel too tense, you feel too nervous, you feel too fearful to being there. Because either you prove everyone wrong and you show that you are the best, or you fail. You weren't able to meet the expectations and you lost your chance. So if you are all the time creating this fear and relying on fear to motivate you, then you are going to feel too tense when you're competing. And when you make a mistake, again, you have more of that. I have to train harder, I have to prove more, I have to be better, I cannot fail like this, I cannot be embarrassed like this. So you live in the cycle of relying on fear to motivate yourself, but then you feel too fearful when you're about to compete. And this cycle, for as long as you're repeating this loop, you are not gonna perform at your best. Number 3, they rely on approval. A lot of athletes, they had a lot of approval, they had a lot of recognition when they were younger, from their coaches, from their parents, from their teammates, and they started to have this source of confidence. So imagine that you are building a house, and every time that you have more of that thing, you step on top of that. So imagine that you're building a house with the approval of others. So you're building the house all the time, it's the approval of others, and you start getting very high. Imagine that every approval, every recognition, you're putting one on top of the other and you feel like you are on top. You're great, you're very, very high. But then imagine that you miss all of that. All of the recognition, the external approval went away. You were left with nothing. If that was you felt that way, you felt that high of confidence for a very long time, for as long as you had the recognition, and then as the recognition went away, you have nothing. You have no confidence at all, because all the confidence was coming from external recognition. And a lot of athletes go through this. During academy levels, during their younger years playing any sport, they were recognized. And as the recognition went away, when they moved up levels, they started playing at a higher level of competition, they choke because they are not used to have internal confidence. What they need to feel good about themselves is others and not what they really think. It's not their own beliefs. They are not in control of what is going to happen because what other people say matters too much. So this is probably the most common mental block for athletes who are talented, the ones who start succeeding at a young age. And this is very likely the factor that you're gonna see with a lot of players who had a lot of expectations when they were growing up, but when they get to the professional level, they are not able to perform. And we have countless of examples like this. We can see a lot of athletes who were the best during their academy levels, but then when they got to the professional level, they underperformed. They weren't able to perform even at a lower level than they were expected to because they don't have the confidence. They are relying on others. They are so disappointed with themselves because they don't have the recognition that there's just zero confidence for them to perform. So what do we need to do with this? We don't need to work hard. We don't need to do more. And here's a great example for you. Kevin Durant was always working hard, but he felt like his friends were better than him, even though they didn't put in half of the effort that he did.
I worked out like a madman. Like I was in the gym all day, I love to do it. I love to get better. I love to challenge myself. But my friends were better than me, and they didn't work as hard, half as I did. And I was like, yo, what's going on, man? I'm putting so much time in, and these guys are better than me. And the whole thing with me was confidence. I didn't believe that I was good. And once that kicked in, along with my work ethic and the people I had around me to push me and make sure I was good, it was just like, that's when it clicked for me. When I realized that, this guy can't stop me.
So you were seeing the theory, I'm explaining all the psychology of this, having worked with a lot of athletes in the past, you were seeing the example of a successful athlete, and the question that you must ask yourself now is, when will your confidence show up? When are you going to increase your confidence level? You don't need more skills, extra training, more strength, more power, or any physical traits to perform better. If you already got the skills, if you already know how to perform, if you are able to perform at less important moments, what you need to do is work on the mental game. A lot of athletes say that this is the most important thing. So you just need to work on that. And I guarantee you, if you put only 5% of the effort that you put into your physical side, into your mental side, you're gonna see huge developments in the next weeks. Because if this is something that you never worked on before, at least never in the right way, and you put in the effort, you are going to see a lot of progress very quickly as long as you commit to it. So this is where we're gonna speak now. I wanna give you the direction. How do you actually make progress on this? So the thing is, imagine this is your brain. Imagine that you have a lot of connections in your brain that are signaling the things that you learn. So imagine that these connections in red are all the time that you're reinforcing about fear. That you were fearing the outcome, that you're worrying about what others think, that you were trying to get the recognitions of others, that you're trying to avoid mistakes. So all of these neurons in your brain, they were creating these red connections. They are quite strong, they are quite reinforced before. So it's very easy to trigger those thoughts again, these beliefs, these feelings again. So imagine that these connections is, for example, this mental block number 2, using fear as your motivation. So all of those connections are representing that you have to prove yourself, that you cannot make mistakes, and that you're gonna feel tense in a situation that it's a threat, in a competition that you might fail, that you might lose your spot. So you have those connections very strong in your brain because you're practicing them every time that you're doing your extra work. So those connections are quite strong. Now, with mental training, what you want to do is to create these blue connections. So these blue connections are the things you're trying to create with mental training. So being in the moment, focus on what I can control, it's me versus me, I have the confidence, I'm able to perform, I just have to focus on the next action. So imagine that those are the connections that we're trying to build. So as we start doing the mental preparation, as you start using your visualization of mistakes, so I'm going to close my eyes, I'm going to visualize, I just made a mistake. How do I feel? What are the emotions that go through my body? Once I do that, accepting the emotions. How do you want to respond? Okay, it is okay that I feel fear, it is okay that I feel tense, it is okay that I have some tension in my stomach, some pressure on my chest, I feel my legs are heavier. Okay, I'll allow myself to feel those things. Now, how do I want to respond to it? So I want to visualize myself responding with focus, responding with confidence. I'm asking for the ball again. How is my body language? How I'm letting that go away? How am I thinking? So I'm visualizing my responses. I am strengthening those blue connections. So imagine that every single time that I do this visualization, I am having this extra thin line reinforcing this belief. Imagine that I'm doing this 4 times a week for 10 weeks. Now imagine that those connections here, I have 40 of those here, 40 of those here, 40 of those here. These connections start to get stronger. They start replacing the red ones. They start becoming stronger as I practice them. They start becoming stronger as I let go of the outcome. As I have a growth mindset, I'm focused on making myself better. So the way I think all the time, the stimulus that I show myself to, for example, just watching this video and thinking about that you don't have to worry about mistakes, that you don't have to prove other people wrong, that you should just focus on your development, you are creating those connections. You are exposing yourself to ideas that help you think that you are in control, that help you think that it is possible. So do this trial. watch 5 of those videos in the weekend and then see how you feel throughout the week. See if that changes your emotions, see if that changes the way you think, the way you feel. Obviously, you're not going from the lowest confidence on your team to the highest confidence on your team, but maybe you're feeling 20-30% less anxious. Maybe you're feeling 10-20% more confident. You're not even doing any exercise, you're just watching a video. Now imagine if you start implementing the strategy, the routine, the same routine that the highest level athletes use, the same exercise that professional athletes use. So imagine yourself going through that, applying this consistently. How is your body going to respond to that? And if you really want to unlock your highest potential, you need your best mental game. And start with this. So this is pretty much how you are going to change this. So we're moving from these beliefs of fear, of pressure, approval, recognition, mistake avoidance, to creating beliefs of having inner confidence, enjoyment, being in the present moment, as you start creating those connections in your brain through mental training, through the stimulus you give yourself. So I gave you the example of visualization. I can give you the example of relaxation techniques, breathing techniques like the box breathing. So if you're feeling too tense, if you're feeling too anxious, teach your body to relax. Box breathing is a great exercise. You're going pretty much to imagine a box. You inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4, and repeat again. So hold, hold, hold. This is pretty much what you're gonna do. As you repeat a few rounds of that, you're gonna feel more relaxed. So start applying those techniques, start reinforcing these ideas. So it's only up to you now to start working on those things, to start developing your mental game, that you're gonna see results. If you really believe that hard work pays off, all you need to do is to do the mental work, to put in the work to see the results. In the description of the video, there are a few links that can help you. There's a free masterclass that can teach you how to develop your confidence, a link to my online program that has helped thousands of athletes, the link to my one-on-one coaching, and if you are interested in knowing more about any of those, click on the link. I'll be glad to help you out in this mental training journey. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share that with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.